Massachusetts men have been indicted following a drive-by shooting in Saco in February.
19-year-old Joshua Estrada, 20-year-old young Carlos Abrante, and 18-year-old Jason Johnson Rivera were charged with conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute cocaine and perpetrating a drive-by shooting.
According to an indictment, the three men fired at least 5 rounds into another vehicle in a drug trade dispute, and later crashed into another vehicle which struck a school bus full of children. The men fled. Most of Saco and some neighboring areas were put into lockdown after that crash.
The 3 men will be in Maine next week for court appearances. If convicted, they each face 20 years in prison and a fine of up to $1 million on the drug charges. They each face up to 25 years and a maximum fine of $250,000 on the drive-by shooting charge.